And we wanted to touch on a topic today about RNG. It's obviously one of the bigger elements in game with a lot of hot takes. Some people like elements of RNG, some people hate it. So we're gonna talk about what's good RNG, what's bad RNG, and what's our current kind of philosophy in designing our games.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Adventures of Adam. I'm Adam. Let's adventure. And today we're going to be covering what I believe will be a very controversial topic. And the reason I think it's going to be controversial is because I'm going to be advocating for something that I think a lot of players hate, including myself. But even though I hate it and it's frustrating, I think it's very important. And that's the 3% rule in Raid Shadow Legends. I have a love-hate relationship with it. So if you don't know, the way the 3% rule works in Raid is, no matter how much accuracy you have, there will always be a 3% chance that your ability or your debuff or effect, like turn meter reduction or whatever, can get resisted, regardless of how high your accuracy is. And it's a very frustrating mechanic when it happens, but sometimes frustration is good. There's a song by the Lumineers, and in this song, there's a lyric that goes, "It's better to feel pain than nothing at all. The opposite of love is indifference." And I think that applies to this situation. It's better to attempt a run, fail, and get frustrated, and feel that frustration, than to just get the accuracy you need, get the speed you need, hit play, and just win every time. Because if you didn't have to struggle, if you didn't have to fight for it, you just hit play and you beat it, you feel indifference. You feel nothing. You're just like, oh, okay, cool. On to the next one, I guess. But if you fail, and then you fail, and then you fail, and then you fail, and then you win, it's like, oh! You just overcome that challenge. And it feels amazing. And I understand why the people on the development team on Fateless do not like the 3% RNG rule, the 3% rule, and why they think it's bad RNG. Because it's frustrating. But it's out of that frustration that triumph is born. Right? You need that frustration so you can feel that exhilaration when you overcome it. If you're going into a boss for the first time and you're at the slightly below or just at the bare minimum accuracy requirements and you're pushing your gear to the limits and you just get that one perfect run where everything goes right and you nail it, it feels so much better. If there's a stat requirements are X, Y, and Z, you meet these stat requirements of X, Y, and Z, you hit play and you win and there's no struggle, then you don't feel anything. You didn't have, it doesn't feel like you had to work for it. That's my stance on it. Maybe that sounds crazy. And trust me, I've experienced a 3% rule many a times in recent future on my current series I'm doing for Raid, the free-to-play Rares Only Plus. I was fighting the Scarab King, and I kept getting 3%ed. And I failed a run 13 minutes into the fight, and I was super angry. I hit replay to try it again. 9.5 minutes into the fight, it failed. It's like, Argh! I hit play, and I beat it on my third try. And it felt so much more amazing. If I would have just hit play and beat it on my first try, I wouldn't have felt anything. I was like, oh, cool, yeah, of course. I met the stat requirements. It was easy. It's boring. And Paul says something later on in this video that backs up the point. He agrees with me, whether he realizes it or not, but then he sort of backtracks and counters the argument he makes for these types of mechanics, which I find interesting. But I'll let him talk and let you hear his perspective on it.
For me, I don't like things like 3% mechanics, right? I understand why they were created. And a lot of people will probably would ask a valid question. What's the point of a 3%? Why does it exist? Well, we can clearly tell in Raid they did it because they wanted to have a unique subset of champions in their game that could do something guaranteed. Because obviously they had stuff that was resistance free, where it just you didn't need accuracy. But they wanted to have this unique crop of champions that could do things like Siphi A1 and Ghostborn, where it's like, okay, this character is special because it's one of the only ones that can do it on a guaranteed basis. And I feel that's pretty lame, if I'm being honest, because that's the type of RNG I really don't like. I don't like it when a player literally has no control, when you cannot do anything about it other than not do it.
In regards to that point that he makes, where a player can't do anything about it, I tend to disagree. What you can do about it is overgear your champion so that if you do get 3%ed, your run doesn't fail because you're over prepared. If you're just constantly trying to meet the bare minimum requirements and skate by, yeah, you're going to fail sometimes. But that's a decision that you made as a player to try to push your team to the limits by bringing the bare minimum of this thing and bringing more damage or whatever. Like there's a cost. There's you paid the price, right? Like if you bring extra turn meter control, like one extra turn meter control champion instead of one extra damage dealer, yeah, your runs are going to take longer, but now you're over prepared, and if you get 3%ed, it's not going to cause your run to fail. That's how you counter those mechanics.
Yeah, I don't get like the 3% like just miss. Otherwise, it can just only cause frustration. Like you met the accuracy requirement for the fight. You got the gear for it, which took probably a lot of farming, a lot of gear swapping. You got it. Your character's set up. You have plenty of accuracy. There's no reason to miss, and 3%, I guess this run just fails.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating. And I guess like, oh, the other way around is you always have a 3% chance to land it. But when are you ever going into an encounter like hoping for that? You know what I mean? You're never like, all right, you know what? 3% of the time I can go in here with 0 accuracy and land my defense down. No, you're going to obviously get the accuracy you need for it. So like you're never getting the benefit of the other way the 3% works. You're only getting hosed by the negative. And like that's why it's just there's nothing but frustration on the mechanics. So it's just it's something that I don't think any of us appreciate or want to implement in our own.
I'm going to push back a little bit here. I stated this at the beginning of the video, but the times where you do benefit from it is when you're progressing through the game and trying to beat that boss for the first time, and maybe your gear isn't quite good enough. You've stretched your gear to its absolute limits, and now you're trying to beat the boss. And maybe you should have got resisted, but instead you didn't, and now you beat that boss. It's like, boom, done, on to the next. And it feels good because you know you were definitely should not have won that, but you did. It's I don't know, it's very important to me, I think. And I know it's frustrating, but like I said earlier, out of that frustration, triumph is born, right? Like you can't have one without the other.
Things like Raid and a lot of mobile games, RNG is a mechanic that is introduced across a lot. And yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. It also makes sense in some cases. I don't know. I feel like there's always an argument for good RNG and there's always an argument for bad RNG. And if you take away that RNG, then you always end up in the situation where it's like, oh, okay, well, it's boring, or you get kind of like lose interest in it.
Yes, that's exactly what I've been saying the whole time. Thank you for agreeing with me.
Yeah, I think summoning is a good example of good RNG probably, because you don't want the game will kind of become just transactional and unfun if it's like pull 100 void shards and you get Siffy.
I definitely agree with Brad on this point. I think it's a great point, and I do think it could be okay to have occasional events like in Raid where maybe once every 2 months you do a guaranteed champion event, right? Players can save and then make the choice, oh, is this the guaranteed event that I want to participate in? Yes or no. If not, they can wait for the next one, or they can go for it. Either way, I think those are cool, but if that was just always like the baseline, I don't think that's a good idea. But what he was saying about transactional, that's exactly the same thing as I was talking about earlier, where you just, these are the stat requirements. If you meet the stat requirements, you win. The game becomes transactional at that point. It's not even a question of do you win or do you lose. It's like, well, of course you do. Why wouldn't you? And to me, I don't think that's interesting.
Everybody's like, well,
yeah,
but at the same time, they do guaranteed events.
I would just like to take a moment to point out the fact that Brad said do. That is all.
And they end up being successful. And in a lot of these modern gacha mobile hero collector games, that's becoming pretty popular. And like the people that play the game are enjoying that, and those games are seeing success of leaning in the direction of having a blend of summoning events.
Other than that, the 3% rule, I pretty much agree with everything else that they talk about in this video. They have takes on polymorph, they have takes on stone skin, etc., etc. Like these big swingy coin flip. If you win the coin flip, you win the game. If you lose the coin flip, you lose the game. No, 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 no. That is bad RNG. I think, especially in player versus player, the whole point of PvP is to determine who the better player is. And if who the better player is determined by flipping coins, then you're not really determining who the better player is. It's completely counterintuitive to a competitive game mode. So I totally agree. I think Stone Skin is terrible RNG. If you win win the coin flip and you strip the Stone Skin, you're in a much better position to win. But if you fail and you lose the coin flip and you don't strip the Stone Skin, well, you probably just lost. That's horrible. And this new Feral set, where you have a 50% chance to not get polymorphed, that's horrible. Because you do your best to equip your champions in a Feral set. You go through all the trouble of winning your sieges, you get the set, and then you still get polymorphed. It's like, well, why am I wearing this set? I just lost a coin flip. And polymorph is like a, what is it, 25% chance or whatever to just completely lose the game off the RNG based off of that. Like, it's just RNG on top of RNG on top of RNG. Yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts. I just wanted to get that out there because I think the 3% rule is the unsung hero of RNG mechanics, and I think it gets a bad rap, and I just wanted to advocate for it, even though it's not popular. Even though it frustrates me at times, I understand its value. And I'm hoping that the team can see this, and when they watch it, they do so with an open mind and understand that I'm not like trash talking. I'm just I just want this game to be the best that it can be. And I'm afraid that if they don't have some sort of mechanic that is 3% rule adjacent, it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly the 3% rule, but something in that realm that can give someone who's underprepared for a fight a chance to high roll and win in PvE, and also make it so you sort of have to over prepare for a fight. So to like counteract that sort of fail case, I think that's very important to keep the game from getting boring and stale. So hopefully they take this in good spirits and know that I have nothing but respect for the team, and I have nothing but high hopes that this project will live up to the hype. If you want to see the team's full uninterrupted video without me interjecting myself into it, I'll put a link to the full video in the description below. You can check that out for yourself. See their takes. It's a good video. It's a good watch. Make sure you do watch it and leave your input in the comments. Let them know what you think. But anyway, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully, I will see you in another video soon. But until next time, everyone, take care.